Hi guys, tonight we'll witness together how Viking women survived the freezing nights of Scandinavia. Wrapped in furs, gathered around dying fires, they battle the icy winds and bone-chilling cold. If you'd like to join this silent journey through history, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and share in the comments where and when you watched it. Now dim the lights, pull your blanket closer, and let's continue to uncover the secrets of how Viking women survived the harshest winter nights. The wind howls outside, not as a gentle song, but as a beast with an insatiable hunger, rattling the sturdy timbers of the longhouse. It screams through the cracks in the walls, a high-pitched wail that sets your teeth on edge and then drops to a low, guttural moan that seems to vibrate through the very stones of the hearth. You lie on your sleeping platform, a hollowed-out space lined with thick wool blankets and the heavy, coarse furs of bears and wolves. The cold is a constant presence, a silent thief that tries to steal the warmth from your body, even here within the thick walls of the hall. It is a profound, deep cold that seeps into your bones, a reminder that the sun has left this world for a long time, and you are living in the long, drawn-out twilight of a winter that seems to have no end. You pull the furs closer, burying your face in their earthy scent, a blend of wood smoke and wild animal. Your breath, a small, warm cloud, is the only thing that seems to belong entirely to you in this great, cold space. You are a sentinel of warmth, a small, fragile spark in a world that craves to snuff you out. Your day began long before the week. Gray light filtered through the smoke hole. A moment before waking, you were suspended in that liminal space between dreams and the harsh reality of the longhouse, a place where the scent of a summer meadow lingered just out of reach. But the cold always finds you, a cold hand on your face, and the dream dissolves. The fire in the central hearth, which had been banked the night before, was stirred to life with a puff of your breath and a few dried sticks. The first tendrils of smoke curled upward, a thin silver-gray ribbon against the darkness of the hall. It carried with it the smell of wood and life, a scent as comforting as a mother's embrace, a smell that speaks of safety and sustenance. You moved with a practiced rhythm, each motion born of necessity and passed down through generations of women who had faced these same winters. There was no wasted energy, no frivolous gesture. You are a keeper of the hearth, a guardian of life in a world that craves to snuff it out, a quiet warrior in a world of loud ones. The morning hours were dedicated to the silent, tireless work of the home. You sit on a low stool by the fire, a bowl of mending in your lap. The soft, rhythmic sound of your needles slipping through a tear in a woolen tunic is a small, steady metronome in the quiet hall. The fine, hand-spun thread is a stark contrast to the thick, coarse fabric. You feel the rough wool between your fingers, its texture as familiar as your own skin, a testament to the countless hours you have spent working with it. The work is not a chore, it is a sacred act. Each stitch you make is a shield against the cold, a promise of warmth for the man who will wear it. You think of the sheep that gave their wool, grazing on the high, windy pastures in the brief, beautiful days of summer. You remember the long hours spent cleaning and carding the wool, pulling the fibers apart until they were soft and light. And then the patient, repetitive work of spinning the fiber into thread. It is a long chain of effort, from the high pastures to this hearth, and you are a vital link in that chain. Your hands, calloused and strong, move with an unhurried grace. You work in the company of other women, each of you lost in your own task, but bound together by a shared purpose. The rhythmic click of a shuttle on a loom, a deep, resonant thrum that fills the air, the soft hum of a spinning wheel, a constant, soothing sound. The gentle scrape of a knife as a woman carves a wooden bowl, her movements precise and careful. These are the sounds of your world, a quiet symphony of survival. It is a language of shared work and silent understanding. The children play on the floor, their laughter a bright, hopeful sound that seems to push back against the darkness of the long winter. A young boy, his face smudged with soot, tells a story in a hushed voice. His sisters gathered around him, their wide eyes reflecting the dancing light of the fire. Their world is small, confined to the longhouse, but it is a world filled with warmth and life, a tiny self-contained universe in the vastness of the cold. You pause your mending to reach for the large wooden bowl beside you. It holds a mixture of dried fish, butter, and herbs, a potent and nourishing blend that will keep you all strong. The smell of it is rich and savory, a promise of energy and life. You break off a piece, its salty taste filling your mouth, and pass it to the woman beside you. She smiles, a weary but genuine smile, and you feel a warmth spread through you that has nothing to do with the fire. It is the warmth of companionship, of a shared understanding that you are all in this together, facing the same enemy, fighting the same battle. You have shared your bread with her, and she has shared her story with you, and in that exchange, a bond as strong as any oath has been forged. As the day wears on, the light from the smoke hole fades, and the world outside the longhouse seems to vanish entirely. The fire in the hearth grows larger and brighter, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. It is a living thing, a breathing heart that keeps the darkness at bay, a symbol of your resilience. The men return from their work, their faces red with the cold, their clothes dusted with snow. They bring with them the scent of the outdoors, of frosted pines and clean air, a wild, sharp smell that reminds you of a world you have not seen in months. They stomp the snow from their boots, a sound that shakes the very floor. And you greet them with a bowl of food, a simple gesture of welcome that means everything. It is a silent acknowledgement of their hardships and a quiet promise of warmth and safety. The evening is 4 stories. An old woman, her face a map of wrinkles and wisdom, sits by the fire and begins to speak. Her voice is low and raspy, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a forgotten wind. She tells a story of a great serpent that sleeps beneath the roots of the world and of the brave men and women who must keep it from waking. Her words weave a tapestry of myth and memory, a rich history that connects you to the past and gives you hope for the future. You listen with rapt attention, feeling the magic of the tale settle over you like a warm blanket. It is these stories that nourish the soul, that keep the darkness of the mind at bay. A vital part of your survival just as much as the food you eat and the clothes you wear. The stories are the fire in your minds, a light that holds back the creeping cold of despair. They are a shared legacy, a constant reminder of who you are and where you come from. You feel a soft nudge against your side and realize you have fallen into a light doze. It is Thora, your daughter, her small body curled against yours. She is a tiny, warm presence, a living testament to your purpose, to the generations that will continue after you are gone. You run a hand through her hair, its soft strands a gentle contrast to the coarse wool of your clothes. You think of the lessons you have taught her, the stories you have shared, the strength you have tried to pass on. She too will one day be a keeper of the hearth, a guardian of her own home. The thought is a comfort, a small, quiet legacy in a world of great warriors and grand sagas. It is a reminder that while the men may build their fame on the battlefield, the women build the very foundation of their world. The fire has been banked for the night, its red embers glowing like a secret heart in the darkness. You are lying on your sleeping platform, the familiar scent of smoke and wool filling your senses. The sounds of the longhouse have softened to a collective rhythm of soft snores and gentle breathing. The wind still howls outside, but it sounds more distant now, its roar muffled by the thickness of the walls. You are warm, you are safe, you are home. The cold can rage all it wants, but it cannot touch you here. You close your eyes, your mind drifting into the gentle darkness, and you feel yourself falling into the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that only comes after a long, hard day of survival. When you open your eyes, you are still in the profound darkness of night. But the banked fire's heat and the soft breathing of the longhouse's inhabitants form a palpable shield against the relentless cold outside. For a fleeting moment, a memory of summer warmth touches your skin, a sweet illusion that is shattered by the first sharp gasp of frigid air filling your lungs. You rise from your sleeping platform, careful not to disturb your daughter, and tend to the heart of the home. With a gentle breath, you coax the embers that have glowed softly all night back to life. A few dry sticks are added, and the first tentative flames flicker to life. Weak at first, then gaining strength, casting anew, dancing light onto the smoky, familiar walls. The rising smoke carries with it the aroma of wood smoke and dried herbs, a scent that signals not just warmth, but the dawn of a new day, another day of survival. It is a scent that permeates every thread of your clothing, every hair on your head, becoming a part of you, a constant, comforting reminder of this shared life and the unbreakable bond of survival. You listen to the quiet symphony of the longhouse, waking up the soft rustle of furs, a gentle cough, the hushed murmur of a mother comforting a child. These are the sounds of your world, and they are beautiful. In the deep quiet of the morning, other women begin to stir. The cry of a waking baby, the soft murmur of a mother's voice, the creak of a sleeping platform as someone rises, these sounds slowly replace the gentle rhythm of sleep. Your body moves on its own, a well-worn path of ritual and necessity. You dip your face into a basin of icy water. The shock, a harsh but necessary jolt that drives away the last vestiges of slumber. The cold water feels like 1,000 tiny needles on your skin, but it clarifies the mind and readies you for the day's toil. This simple, punishing act is a daily affirmation of your will, a testament to the strength required to simply exist in this demanding world. The icy liquid forces a renewed focus, a singular awareness of the present moment and the tasks that lie ahead. It is a form of silent meditation, a chance to shed the dreams of the night and embrace the harsh, beautiful reality of the day. The first major task is the preparation of the morning meal for your kin. You move to the great communal table, a worn slab of wood bearing the marks of generations of meals and stories. You take up a sharpening stone, the rhythmic scrape of metal against rock, a sharp and steady pulse in the quiet hall. The knife, an extension of your own hand, is honed to a keen edge. You carefully slice dried salmon, a prize from the last days of summer, preserved for these lean, unforgiving months. Each slice is thin and translucent, and the salty, potent smell of the fish fills the air, a fleeting reminder of the river's rush and the wild taste of fresh water. As you work, other women are preparing cheese, breaking off chunks of hard bread and laying out dried berries. No words are needed. Each of you understands your role in this shared, silent communion of work. The sounds of your labor form a quiet, harmonious chorus, the gentle thump of a pestle in a mortar, the soft rustle of dried herbs being sorted, the steady hum of a spinning wheel beginning its turn. A hunger gnaws at you, a physical ache that is not just for food, but for the warmth of family, of community. As you share the food, you also share a story or a quiet word, forging bonds stronger than iron. A young woman offers you a piece of fresh baked bread, its crust dark and firm, It's inside a warm, steamy white. The heat from it is a small miracle in your hands. You take a bite, and the taste is a burst of earthy grain and simple sustenance. In that moment, the bread is more than just food. It is a promise of life, a physical manifestation of hope. It is proof that the sun still exists, that the harvest was successful, and that you will endure. The simple act of sharing a meal becomes a powerful, silent declaration of unity. It is the understanding that your strength is not measured by the size of your muscles or the sharpness of your blade, but by the resilience of your spirit and your commitment to one another. The biting wind still howls outside, but it only serves to highlight the strength and security of the longhouse walls. The contrast between the savage world without and the warm, contained universe within is a constant source of quiet strength. While the men must face the brutal elements felling trees. Hunting for sparse game, the women are the keepers of the home soul, the guardians of the inner fire that keeps the darkness at bay. Their work is a sacred task, a continuous offering that ensures the warrior's survival and provides a soft place for them to land when they return from the hard world. The women are the quiet architects of this shelter, their hands weaving not just cloth, but the very fabric of their society. They are the unseen heroes, their triumphs measured not in glorious battles, but in a well-mended tunic, a nourishing meal, or a child's restful sleep. As the morning progresses, a group of men return from their work. Their faces are red with cold, their furs dusted with snow, but their eyes are bright with a quiet, fierce energy. They bring with them the sharp, invigorating scent of the outdoors, of frosted pine and clean air, a wild aroma that has been absent for months. They stomp the snow from their boots with a sound that shakes the very floor, and you greet them with a simple offering of a bowl of hot broth, a wordless gesture that says everything. It is a silent acknowledgement of their hardship and a quiet promise of warmth and safety. They huddle by the hearth, their calloused hands held out to the flames, the steam from their breath rising in ghostly clouds. In their eyes, you see not just weariness, but a profound gratitude of recognition that their strength and their battles are meaningless without the sanctuary you have created here. The men's hands, once cold and stiff from swinging axes, slowly regain their feeling by the fire you have nurtured. The simple act of a warrior's knees giving way by the hearth is a silent, trusting surrender to the strength you provide. The final hours of the day are a gentle descent into peace. Each person is engaged in their own small task, but a sense of communal relief hangs in the air. The evening meal is prepared, the smell of roasted meat and vegetables filling the hall, a fragrant promise of nourishment. The meal is not just a necessity, but a celebration-y, quiet, powerful acknowledgement that life, in all its forms, is a victory. Once the meal is done, the greatest ritual of all begins. An elder woman begins to speak, her voice a low, melodic drone. She tells tales of ancient heroes, of gods and goddesses, and of creatures that lurk in the shadowed corners of the world. Her words weave a tapestry of shared myth, a rich history that binds you all together. It is these stories that feed the soul, that keep the creeping cold of despair at bay. The narratives are filled with tales of courage, loss, and the eternal cycle of the seasons, providing a comforting framework for their existence. You feel a soft nudge against your side, and your daughter Thora curls her small body against yours, her warmth a living testament to your purpose. She is the future you guard, the hope you nurture in this harsh land. You run a hand through her hair, its soft strands a gentle counterpoint to the rough wool of your clothes. The fire has been banked for the night, its embers glowing like a secret heart in the darkness. The longhouse settles into a collective rhythm of soft snores and gentle breathing. The wind still howls outside, but its roar is muffled now, a distant, harmless sound. You are warm, you are safe, you are home. The cold can rage all it wants, but it cannot touch you here. You close your eyes, your mind drifting into the peaceful darkness, feeling yourself fall into the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that only comes after a long, hard day of survival. The morning's rituals of fire and food have been completed, and the low, golden light of the short winter day filters through the smoke hole, painting stripes across the packed earth floor. The air, though still holding a trace of morning's chill, is now filled with the hum of the longhouse at work. The communal table, recently cleared of food, has been repurposed for the day's tasks. The steady thud of a loom's beater echoes from the far end of the hall, a rhythmic heartbeat that marks the passage of time and the patient creation of new cloth. Other women are busy at various tasks, sorting dried herbs, carving small wooden spoons, or meticulously sharpening tools. You find your place among them, reaching for a small basket of unspun wool. The fibers, still smelling faintly of sheep and the wild outdoor air, are a testament to the brief bounty of summer. You take a handful and with a practiced motion begin to pull and twist, preparing it for the spinning wheel. The work is quiet and meditative. Your hands, though calloused from labor, move with a precise and gentle grace. As you work, your mind drifts, replaying the story an elder told last night. Its ancient words, a comforting rhythm to the motions of your hands. The stories are not just entertainment. They are a vital thread woven through the fabric of your life, connecting you to generations past and to the land itself. The tale of Freya, her tears turning to amber as she searched for her lost husband, reminds you of the deep, unbreakable bonds of love and the pain of separation. The narrative provides a quiet strength, a sense that your own small trials and sacrifices are part of a much larger, enduring saga. Beside you, an older woman with a face as lined as a winter-worn map is mending a fur cloak. Her movements are slow but deliberate, and she hums a wordless tune. You offer her a thread of your spun wool, its perfect twist, a source of quiet pride. She smiles, a network of wrinkles deepening around her eyes, and accepts it with a nod, a simple exchange that speaks of shared skill and mutual respect. The silence between you is not empty. It is full of understanding, of years of shared struggle and shared strength. Her hands, gnarled and powerful, work with an efficiency that can only come from decades of experience. She is a living library of knowledge, her every movement a lesson in patience and resilience. You see in her hands the history of this longhouse, the countless threads spun and woven, the endless meals prepared, the generations of children raised. She is the quiet, immovable foundation upon which this home is built. Your own task today is the repair of your husband's tunic. You retrieve it from your sleeping platform, its worn fabric and faded colors a chronicle of his life and battles. The wool is coarse and durable, stained with dirt, blood, and the residue of campfires. There is a tear in the shoulder, a gash that speaks of a close call in the hunt. You feel a pang of quiet anxiety, a fleeting image of him against the endless white of the snow, a feeling you quickly suppress. You select a needle and a thick thread, the careful act of pushing the needle through the fabric, a form of prayer. Each stitch is a small act of devotion, a silent promise to protect him, to keep him safe in this small, vital way. The fabric is a map of your family's history that Pachu sewed when he was thrown from his horse. The intricate embroidery you added after the birth of Thora. You remember the countless hours spent on the embroidery, your fingers tracing the complex patterns of a protective rune, your mind filled with hopes and fears for your newborn daughter. The tunic is a physical representation of your bond, a layer of protection woven by your hands that he carries into the dangerous world. As you work, Your daughter Thora wakes from her nap, her small body unfolding from the warmth of the furs. She toddles towards you, her eyes wide with curiosity, her hands reaching for the basket of wool. You smile and give her a small, clean tuft. She holds it to her face, a look of pure joy on her features, and you watch as she tries to mimic your twisting motion. Her movements are clumsy, but full of serious effort, and you know that one day she too will sit by this hearth, her hands turning raw wool into threads of life. You gently guide her small hands, teaching her the first simple steps of a trade that will one day ensure her own survival. This moment is not just about teaching a skill. It is about passing down a legacy, a deep-seated knowledge that is as vital as the air they breathe. You see in her tiny fingers the promise of a future, a continuation of your line, a link in the chain that stretches back through generations of women who have kept the home fires burning. The afternoon light begins to fade, its last rays a farewell kiss on the walls of the longhouse. The sounds of work grow softer, the pace slows. As the last of the light drains from the sky, a sense of quiet accomplishment settles over the hall. The men have returned, the fire is banked, and the women have transformed raw materials into essential tools of survival. The tunic is mended, the tear in the shoulder now a testament to your care, a knot of protection woven into the fabric of his life. You put your tools away, the quiet clatter a final punctuation mark to the day's labor. The work is never truly done, but for now, the longhouse can rest. The low, warm light of the fire replaces the fleeting sunbeams, and the longhouse feels more like a living, breathing entity than a mere building. It holds the warmth of their bodies, the scent of their food, the history of their stories, and the quiet, unending work of their hands. The last flicker of the short day's light had long since vanished from the smoke hole, and the longhouse was fully surrendered to the embrace of the night. The banked fire, a living heart in the center of the hall, pulsed with a low, steady warmth that chased the chill from the air. Its golden light danced, casting long, wavering shadows on the packed earth floor and across the faces of your family. The steady rhythm of the day's work had faded into a quiet, contented hum, the gentle rustle of furs, the soft sigh of a sleeping child, the occasional snap of a log in the embers. The sounds of a life lived in harmony with the winter darkness. You settled deeper into the sleeping platform beside your husband, Thora nestled soundly between you. The worn tunic, now flawlessly mended, was folded neatly at the foot of the bed, a testament to the day's quiet victory. The warmth of your husband's body was a comfort, a solid, dependable presence against the endless cold outside the thick oak walls. His hand found yours, his calloused fingers lacing with your own. The wordless gesture was all you needed. A silent acknowledgement of the day, of the work done, and of the bond you shared. The quiet of the longhouse was not an absence of sound, but a tapestry of a Tay language of contentment, spoken in whispers and small, meaningful gestures. From the central hearth, the elder woman, Sigrid, with her face as wrinkled as a wind-beaten coastline, cleared her throat. Her voice, when she spoke, was a low, melodic rumble, like stones rolling on a riverbed. It was a voice that held the weight of countless winters and the wisdom of 100 tales. She began not with a grand flourish, but with a simple, arresting phrase that pulled every mind to the firelight. "Listen and remember," she began, her gaze sweeping over the gathered faces, resting for a moment on yours. For the gods themselves knew the cold of grief, a winter of the heart that no fire could ever truly thaw. And so she began the tale of Balder, the radiant son of Odin, and Frigg, the fairest of the gods. You listened, your body still and relaxed, but your mind alive and open. She spoke of his beauty, a light so bright that it made the very day seem brighter, his presence so kind that all of Asgard loved him without question. You imagined him, this golden god, so unlike the harsh gray light of your own winter. He was a symbol of all that was beautiful and fleeting in the world, like the brief bounty of a Scandinavian summer. You felt a pang of connection to that warmth, that fleeting joy, remembering the feel of the sun on your skin, the scent of the summer fields, the brief, intense burst of life that sustained your people through the long darkness. But even the most perfect light, Sigurd's voice rumbled on, casts the longest shadow. Balder began to be tormented by dreams of his own death. Dark, shadowy portents that whispered of his end. Fear crept into the golden halls of Asgard, a fear so potent it felt like the first chill breath of a coming frost. In her immense love, Balder's mother, Frigg, set out to protect him. You could almost feel her desperation, her resolve. You, too, knew that feeling. The lengths a mother would go to protect her child. You thought of Thora, so small and vulnerable in her sleep, and the fierce, burning need to shield her from every possible harm. You had mended a tear in a tunic, but Frigg, with the power of a goddess, took on the entire world. Sigrid spoke of Frigg's journey across the 9 realms. She exacted an oath from every living thing and every inanimate object, from the sharpest stone to the tiniest blade of grass, that they would never harm her beloved son. It was a monumental task, a cosmic act of motherhood, and when it was finished, Frigg was certain Balder was invincible. The gods, relieved and joyful, began to make a sport of it. They would hurl their weapons at Balder, watching as swords, axes, and even spears simply bounced harmlessly from his perfect body. It was a game, a spectacle, a testament to his invulnerability and his mother's powerful love. The sound of their delighted laughter, as Sigrid described it, seemed to fill the quiet longhouse, a light passing echo of a joy that was now lost to the ages. You smiled faintly, imagining it. The gods, for all their power and fury, acting like simple children, throwing things at their brother in gleeful innocence. A touch of light humor, a gentle chuckle in the dark. It made them feel a little closer to you, less like distant, unapproachable beings, and more like an old, complicated family. The elder's tone was so gentle, so conversational, that the god's home felt as real as your own longhouse, just with much better parties and fewer mice. But then the mood shifted. Sigrid's voice dropped, becoming a low, sorrowful drone. She spoke of Loki, the trickster, whose heart was a cold place of envy and malice. Loki saw the gods' joyous game, and a bitter black thought took root in his mind. He disguised himself as an old woman and sought out Frigg. He coaxed the secret from her, the one exception to her great oath. She had believed the mistletoe too insignificant, too small and young to ever do harm, and so had not asked it for an oath. You felt a chill run through your body, a prickling sense of dread. It was the familiar, terrible moment in every great tragedy, the moment when a single, tiny, seemingly unimportant detail becomes the seed of ultimate ruin. You knew that feeling too, the weight of a small oversight, a forgotten task that could unravel an entire day's work. Loki fashioned a small dart from the mistletoe. He brought it to the gods' gathering, and there he gave it to Balder's blind brother, Hod. He stood behind him, his whisper a venomous hiss in the ear of the innocent god. "Throw it," Loki urged, his voice oily and manipulative. "Throw it, brother. For you too should be part of the game." Hod, thinking it a harmless jest, threw the dart. It flew true, a small, dark streak in the air, and pierced Balder's heart. He fell, a silent, beautiful star extinguished in the sky. The longhouse was utterly silent now. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the faint, rhythmic breathing of your sleeping family. You were no longer just a woman in a longhouse, listening to a story. You were in the mead halls of Asgard, a witness to the profound sorrow of the gods. You felt their grief as a physical weight in the air, a silent howl that hung heavy in the smoke. The light, the beauty, the joy all gone in an instant, taken by a small, unassuming thing. It was a testament to the fragile nature of all things, even a god's life. You felt a wave of sadness wash over you. Sigrid spoke of the gods' mourning, of their failed attempt to retrieve Balder from the land of the dead, of the terrible darkness that fell upon Asgard in his absence. It was a long, cold morning, a winter that would not end. She told of his mother's broken heart, of Odin's despair, of the coming Ragnarok. The twilight of the gods that was prophesied to follow Balder's death. The story was a bleak one, and yet there was a strange, sad comfort in it. It reminded you that even the gods felt the pain of loss and the cold of sorrow. It was a profound truth that you could carry with you, a quiet resilience in your heart. Your own small sorrows, your own fleeting anxieties for your husband's safety in the wild, were part of a much larger, enduring saga of love and loss. Finally, Sigrid's voice trailed off. The story was finished. It was a silence that was not empty, but full of the weight of the story, full of ancient grief and the timeless struggle between light and darkness. You watched your husband's face in the firelight, his brow furrowed in thought. You knew he had heard the story many times before, but still he listened as if for the first time. The stories were not just entertainment. They were a vital thread woven through the fabric of your people, connecting you to generations past and to the very land itself. Slowly, the longhouse began to stir again. One by one, the family stood, their movements quiet and deliberate. The fire was banked once more, a single glowing coal protected by a mound of ash, a promise of warmth for the morning. You and your husband carefully arranged the furs on your platform, your hands moving with a comfortable, practiced ease. You lay down with your daughter's small, warm body, a reassuring presence between you. The sounds of the longhouse faded into a gentle murmur of sleep. The last thought in your mind was not of the sorrow of the gods, but of the strength of a mother's love. As you drifted into the quiet, enveloping darkness, you felt a sense of peace. The longhouse was full of warmth, full of life, full of stories, and for now, it was enough. The faint light of the next morning found its way through the smoke hole. A thin, icy promise that the darkness of the night was not eternal. A new day had begun, and with it, a new set of tasks. The longhouse began to stir with the quiet, purposeful movements of your people. You rose with them, the soft rustle of furs and the low murmur of sleepy voices filling the space. The fire, which had been a single protected ember all night, was coaxed back to life with kindling and a gentle breath. Soon, its golden warmth began to spread, chasing the last of the night's chill from your bones. Thora, your daughter, was awake now, her small hands reaching for yours. You helped her into her layers of woolen tunics and leggings, dressing her like a tiny, determined warrior against the pervasive cold. The thick wool, spun and woven with your own hands, felt rough but reassuring. It was a tangible expression of your love and care, a silent armor against the biting wind that waited outside. You tied her small leather boots, pulling them tight to keep the snow and ice from her feet. Her bright eyes watched you, full of the simple trust of a child. You smiled, a soft, private moment in the growing hustle of the morning. Your husband was already outside, the faint clang of his axe echoing from the forest edge where he would be gathering firewood. The sound was a comforting one, a familiar rhythm of life that grounded you in the harsh, beautiful reality of your existence. His presence was a silent reassurance, a knowledge that you were not alone in this perpetual struggle against the elements. You would not see him again until evening, his day as long and as arduous as yours. The work of winter was a shared burden, a constant dance of survival that demanded every ounce of your strength and resolve. Your first task of the day was to check on the food stores. You made your way to the back of the longhouse, where the earth had been dug out and lined with stone to create a cold storage cellar. The air there was dry and biting, a perfect preservation for the smoked fish, salted meats, and cured cheeses. The scent of salt and smoke was a perfume of winter, a reminder of the bounty of the short summer and the long, painstaking effort to prepare for the coming famine of the deep winter. You examined the stores with a critical eye, checking for any signs of mold or spoilage. Each item was a precious treasure, a life-giving resource that had to be guarded with vigilance. The smoked salmon, still glistening with fat, was a visual feast, a promise of flavor that would brighten a bleak, monotonous meal. As you worked, the other women began their morning tasks as well. Sigrid, the elder, was mending a fishing net, her weathered hands moving with a speed and grace that belied her age. The younger women were at the long central hearth, stirring a pot of barley porridge, its nutty aroma beginning to fill the air. The longhouse was a microcosm of a much larger world of shared labor, mutual support, and deep, unspoken bonds. There was no need for words. The work itself was a form of communication, a quiet, humming song of cooperation. You moved to the large stone hand mill, the quern. It was your turn to grind the grains for the day's bread. The two heavy stones, one stationary and one turning, were a familiar weight in your hands. The work was demanding, the muscles in your arms and shoulders burning with the effort. But you fell into a rhythm, a steady, circular motion that was both meditative and deeply physical. The rough, earthy scent of the rye and oats filled the air, and the dry, powdery feel of the flour on your hands was a sensory pleasure. You thought of the life contained in these simple grains, the sun that had nurtured them, the earth that had given them strength. The journey they had taken from the fields to this longhouse. The work was hard, a constant drain on your energy, but there was a certain satisfaction in it. You were not fighting against the cold so much as you were living in harmony with it. The winter was a presence, a fact of life, but it did not define you. Your work, your quiet, tireless labor, was your power. You were a guardian of life, a protector of your family and your people, and your domain was the longhouse and all that it contained. You were the one who held the warmth inside, who kept the fire burning, who turned the raw materials of the earth into the sustenance of life. The morning passed in a blur of small, essential tasks. You ground the grain, kneaded the heavy dough, and shaped the flatbreads to be baked on the hot stones of the hearth. You mended a tear in one of your husband's leather breeches, your needle moving with a swift, confident motion. You helped a younger woman, newly married and still finding her way, with the finer points of curing meat, showing her the proper amount of salt and the right kind of smoke. Your hands were never still, and your mind was always engaged. You were a master of 100 small crafts, and each one was a thread in the great, intricate tapestry of your people's survival. As the morning waned, the light from the smoke hole grew a little brighter, a sign that the sun was at its highest point in the sky. The work of the morning was finished, and the longhouse was quiet once more, filled with the simple, good smells of baking bread and simmering porridge. You took a moment to sit by the fire, simply to feel the heat on your face and watch the flames dance. Thora was playing with a small, carved wooden doll, her laughter a bright, clear sound in the quiet space. It was a fleeting moment of rest, a small, precious gift in the middle of a long, cold day. You saw your husband, a dark, stoic shape against the blinding white of the snow, carrying a large bundle of wood on his back. His body, so often a symbol of strength and power in battle, was now a humble servant to the needs of the Longhouse. He was a silent partner in your shared work, a constant presence that you could always rely on. He entered the Longhouse, the cold air and the scent of pine needles clinging to his clothes. You saw the familiar lines of tiredness etched on his face, but his eyes, when he looked at you, were warm. The day was not over, but you knew that, together, you would see it through. The afternoon would bring a new round of work. There was still wool to be carded and spun, more nets to be mended, and the evening meal to prepare. But for now, you had this moment. You were a Viking woman, a survivor of the cold, and you were a part of a much larger, enduring story. You felt a deep and abiding sense of peace. The cold could not touch you here, in the heart of your home, surrounded by your people, nourished by your own hard work. The Longhouse was a fortress against the winter, and you were its queen, its guardian, its very soul. The quiet, settled rhythm of the afternoon began. You rose from your place by the fire, a new purpose filling your step.
Oh.
There was wool to be carded, the raw, greasy fleece to be transformed into soft, clean fibers. The hand combs, with their sharp wooden teeth, felt solid and familiar in your grip. As you worked, you hummed a low, wordless tune, a simple melody passed down through generations of women. The sound was as much a part of the Longhouse as the crackle of the fire, a constant, comforting presence. It was a song of work, of life, of survival, a song of the enduring strength of your people, a quiet, humming affirmation that you would see this winter through, just as you had seen so many before. The shadows began to lengthen, crawling from the corners of the Longhouse and painting the walls in deep, dusky shades of blue and gray. The afternoon had been a blur of purposeful activity, each task leading seamlessly into the next. Now, with the sun beginning its final descent towards the horizon, a different kind of quiet settled over the Longhouse's stillness, born of shared labor and the knowledge that the day's most essential work was done. The air, once filled with the rhythmic hum of spinning wheels and the clatter of tools, now held only a gentle, expectant hush, a space between the day's toil and the night's rest. The low, warm light of the hearth was no longer competing with the sun, but was now the sole source of illumination, a beacon in the gathering dark. You moved with a practiced grace, adding logs to the hearth fire, your movements economical and precise. The flames leaped higher, their warmth a living presence against the deepening chill of the evening. The scent of wood smoke mingled with the savory aroma of the simmering stew, a simple but nourishing meal of salted pork and foraged root vegetables. It was the promise of a shared meal, a moment of togetherness that you had all earned, a tangible reward for the day's unyielding effort. Your daughter Thora came to you, her small body tired but content. You lifted her into your lap, her weight a comforting warmth against you. She rested her head on your shoulder, her eyelids heavy with sleepiness. You ran a hand through her flaxen hair, murmuring a soft, wordless lullaby that had been sung by generations of mothers before you. It was a song of protection, of love, of the quiet strength that lay at the heart of your people. The ancient melody spoke not of battles or glory, but of hearth fires and safe harbors, of the deep-seated knowledge that life, in all its simplicity, was the greatest treasure. As the light faded completely, the men began to return from their labors. The sound of their heavy boots on the hard-packed earth outside was a familiar prelude to their arrival. Your husband, his face a mosaic of tiredness and satisfaction, was the first to enter, his arms filled with fresh-cut wood. He dropped the logs with a satisfying thud and turned to you, his eyes finding yours across the smoky, firelit space. The brief, silent exchange was a language all its own, a simple affirmation of your shared journey. You saw the weariness etched in the lines around his eyes, the dust and grime from the day's work on his skin. But you also saw a profound contentment in his gaze, a quiet gratitude for the warmth and peace of home. The others followed, their voices a low, rumbling counterpoint to the quiet of the longhouse. They spoke of the day's work, of the thickness of the ice on the river, of the wild deer tracks they had seen in the forest. It was the easy, familiar talk of a family and a community, the casual sharing of burdens and small victories. You listened as you ladled the hot stew into wooden bowls, your movements a part of the evening's quiet ritual. The hunger in their eyes was a different kind of warmth, a deep, satisfied need for the food you had prepared, a clear and honest sign of a day well spent. The evening meal was a simple, sacred ceremony. You gathered around the central fire, the flickering light casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The food was eaten in a comfortable silence, each person lost in their own thoughts, their bodies nourished by the simple, hearty meal. You watched Thora, her small hand clutching a piece of flatbread, her eyes wide with a sleepy contentment. In that moment, surrounded by your family, you felt a deep and abiding sense of peace. The food was more than sustenance. It was a link to the land, a testament to the hard-won harvest and the relentless work of preservation. Each bite was a silent promise of survival, a shared victory against the encroaching cold. After the meal, the quiet returned, but it was a different kind of quiet now. A silence filled with the gentle hum of contentment and the low murmur of shared conversation. Your husband took a moment to clean his axe, his movements slow and deliberate, a final ritual of the day. The other men settled by the fire, their voices low as they spoke of past hunts and ancient sagas, their faces illuminated by the firelight. The women began the gentle work of clearing away the bowls and preparing for the long night ahead. You sat by the fire, your hands busy with a new task, braiding your husband's hair. It was a private, intimate ritual, a silent act of love and care. Your fingers, calloused by the day's hard work, moved with a surprising softness, weaving the strands together in a tight, protective pattern. You could feel the tired slump of his shoulders, the deep fatigue that had settled into his bones. The moment was a quiet sanctuary, a space where the demands of the world fell away, leaving only the two of you, connected by 1,000 small, unspoken acts of love. As you worked, you noticed the faint scent of pine and cold air still clinging to his hair, a small, tangible reminder of the world he endured for you. As you worked, your mind drifted to the stories you had heard as a child. Stories of the gods and goddesses, of the great battles and the long voyages. These were the sagas that defined your people, but you knew that the true saga was not fought on a distant battlefield. It was fought here, in this longhouse, every single day. It was the quiet, relentless battle against the cold and the dark. It was the fierce, unwavering love that made you work, that made you fight, that made you endure. This was a war fought with needles and thread, with logs and fire, with simple meals and loving hands. A saga of quiet resilience and unyielding spirit, passed down from mother to daughter, from father to son. The fire began to die down, the flames giving way to a soft, pulsing glow. The longhouse was filled with the easy rhythm of breathing and the low murmur of conversation. You finished your work, your hands lingering on your husband's head for a moment longer than necessary. He looked at you, a half smile on his face, his eyes full of a love that was both fierce and gentle. The day was over. It had been hard and demanding, but it had been a good day. You had survived. You had endured. You were a Viking woman, and you were home, a safe harbor in the heart of the winter. The fire was a memory now, a deep, pulsing heart of embers that cast a soft red glow on the sleeping forms around the hearth. The longhouse was steeped in a profound silence, a stillness broken only by the gentle rhythm of breathing and the low, distant howl of the wind outside. The night was a heavy, living presence against the walls, pressing against the sturdy timbers as if to test their strength. It was a cold, unforgiving world out there, but inside, in the small, warm universe of the longhouse, a fierce and quiet peace reigned. You lay awake for a time, your mind tracing the events of the day. The weight of Thora's small body against your side was a warm, anchoring presence. Her breathing was a soft sigh, the sound of a child completely at ease in the world. You shifted slightly, your body accustomed to the hard, unyielding earth beneath the furs. Your eyes adjusted to the dark, and you could make out the shapes of your family, your husband, his broad shoulders rising and falling with each steady breath. The other women, their faces serene in sleep, and the men their hands, which had wielded axes and hammers, now resting in a state of deep-earned rest. The longhouse was not merely a shelter. It was a testament to survival. Every log, every piece of fur, every tool had been brought here by immense effort. The air was thick with the faint sense of wood smoke, old leather, and human warmth, a comforting blend that spoke of home and endurance. You found a sense of profound satisfaction in the simple fact of this existence. There were no songs of glory, no tales of great battles in this quiet hour, only the quiet, unrelenting truth of a life built with your own hands. This was your monument, a living, breathing testament to your strength and the strength of your people. A sudden, sharp gust of wind rattled the wooden walls, a sound like a great beast scratching at the door. You felt Thora stir in her sleep, her small body instinctively pressing closer to you. You wrapped your arm around her, a silent gesture of protection. This was your true fight, you thought, not with sword and shield on some far-off shore, but against the relentless forces of nature. Your weapons were the warmth of the fire, the nourishment of the food, and the unbreakable bonds of family. These were the tools of your true power. Your husband stirred beside you, his hand finding yours in the darkness. His calloused fingers interlaced with your own, a silent and reassuring connection. In that shared touch, you felt a deep understanding that went beyond words. It was a recognition of a shared journey, of the burdens you both carried and the strength you found in one another. His presence was a bulwark against the darkness, a promise that you were not alone in this long, cold night. Sleep finally came, but it was not a surrender to unconsciousness. It was a descent into a deeper, more primal kind of awareness. You dreamed not of gods or heroes, but of the sun. You dreamed of its return, of the day when its light would once again warm the earth and melt the ice. You dreamed of green shoots pushing through the snow and the sound of birds returning to the forest. It was a dream of promise, a dream of life's unending cycle, and in that dream you knew a profound sense of hope. You were a part of something larger than yourself, a vital link in the long chain of existence, and you would endure. Just as the sun would endure, just as life would endure. The sun's return was not a sudden explosion of light, but a slow, hesitant blush across the horizon. A promise whispered rather than shouted. When you awoke, you felt it instantly, a subtle shift in the air, a quality of light you had not seen for moons. The longhouse was no longer steeped in the deep, cold gloom of a perpetual night. A soft, clear light filtered through the smoke hole, painting a pale, silvery square on the hard-packed earth. The sound of the wind, once a fearsome roar, had softened into a gentle murmur. Outside, the world was no longer in silent, frozen slumber. You could hear the faint, musical drip of melting icicles, a tiny song of renewal. It was a melody of deliverance, a subtle, sweet sound that had been absent from the world for so long it felt like a brand new discovery. The very air you breathed felt cleaner, lighter, no longer the heavy, stagnant breath of the longhouse, but a fresh, invigorating draft that carried the scent of promise and the faint, earthy smell of the ground beneath the snow. You rose quietly, moving with an easy lightness in your body. The aches and stiffness that had become your constant companions through the winter months were now just faint echoes, a memory of the endurance you had, called upon every morning like the shedding of old armor you no longer needed. Your husband was already awake, sitting by the dying embers of the hearth. He looked up as you approached, and in his eyes you saw the same quiet wonder and profound relief that you felt in your own heart. He gestured towards the smoke hole, his face a map of satisfaction. The worst was over. The long night, with its constant demands and its unyielding cold, was finally loosening its grip. You knelt beside him, and together you watched the light grow, a silent vigil that was a sacred ritual of your shared life. There was no need for words. In the shared stillness of that moment, everything was understood, the trials endured, the battles fought in the silent dark, and the fierce, quiet joy of seeing the day return. It was a moment that held the weight of all the nights you had endured, all the fears you had suppressed, and all the hope that had sustained you. Thora awoke, her eyes blinking against the unaccustomed brightness. She crawled to you, her small hand reaching for your face. You saw the world anew through her eyes, the way the sun's rays caught the dust motes dancing in the air, transforming the mundane into something magical. The golden shimmer on the coals that now seemed to hold a new, more hopeful fire. Her small hand in yours was a tangible proof of your success, a living, breathing testament to the quiet war you had won against the cold. You had survived this winter for her, for the promise of her future, for the sight of her smiling face in the light of a new day, and the knowledge that she would never know a life without the sun's return. The men began to stir, their deep voices a rumble of awakening. They moved differently today, with a renewed sense of purpose. There was no longer a heavy burden of survival in their shoulders, but a spring in their step. You heard them speak of the day's tasks, not with weary resignation, but with a quiet enthusiasm. The women, too, began their morning tasks with a new vigor. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a shared knowing that the work ahead, the planting, the building, the preparing for the next season, was no longer a desperate fight against the dark, but a hopeful dance with the returning light. The tools felt lighter in your hands, the familiar routines, a new kind of joy. Each task a small, confident step towards the promise of the coming spring. The rhythm of the longhouse, which had been a slow, protective beat, now quickened into a purposeful, bustling melody. Each sound a note in the symphony of thaw. Your husband went to the great oaken door, his hand resting on the heavy latch. With a deep breath, he unbarred it and pushed it open. The blast of cold air that rushed in was clean and bracing, no longer carrying the bite of endless winter, but the fresh, invigorating scent of the world coming alive. You saw the world outside, transformed. The snow was still deep, a vast white blanket stretching across the land. But the sun's rays were already carving delicate patterns of shadow and light on its surface. You could see the subtle sheen of melting on the icy trees, a million tiny promises of water to come. The trees, though bare, seemed to stand with a new kind of dignity, their branches holding the promise of green leaves to come. Their forms etched against a sky that was finally, gloriously, a shade of true blue. You walked to the doorway. Thora nestled against your leg and stood beside your husband. Your hands found each other, a simple, firm grip that spoke volumes. The journey had been long and arduous. You had faced the cold, the hunger, and the quiet fear of the long, dark nights. But you had not only survived, you had endured. You had not only kept the fire burning, you had kept the spirit of your people alive. The sagas told of warriors and kings, but the true epic you knew was here in the unyielding spirit of a family and the quiet strength of a woman. And in the profound simple truth that after every long night, the sun would always return. This was your legacy, a story of quiet resilience woven into the very fabric of the world, passed down not in grand poems, but in the memory of warm hands and a well-fed child. You were a vital link in a chain that stretched back through generations, a link that would ensure the sagas continued to be told, for you were the ones who kept the hearth warm, the bellies full, and the stories alive. You looked at the sun, a fiery orb now climbing the sky, and you smiled. The winter had passed. Life, in all its quiet, enduring glory, would continue, and you would be there, a part of its eternal, unbreakable cycle.